Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the dusty, blood-spattered sands of ancient Rome. Not as a noble senator reclining on a marble bench, mind you, but as a rookie gladiator stepping into the roaring chaos of the arena. You're not a champion, not yet. You're the wide-eyed newcomer with a borrowed sword and armor that smells like someone else's fear. The crowd doesn't know your name, and if they blink, they might never need to learn it. The moment you step into that world, the first thing you notice is the heat. Not just from the sun beating down on the amphitheater's sandpit, but from the breath of thousands of spectators packed shoulder to shoulder, their cheers rising like steam. You squint through the sunlight, heart hammering like a war drum, and still, you're getting stronger. Sort of. You can block a blow now without flinching, and you're starting to recognize certain faces. Most notably the guy with the cauliflower ears who likes to hum as he swings his mace. No one knows his real name. Everyone just calls him the Quiet. Now, here's the funny thing about gladiator schools. They were part gym, part prison, and part business venture. Wealthy citizens would invest in you like you were a prize racehorse. If you survived long enough and won enough matches, you could earn your freedom, or at least avoid being served up to a tiger. But you're still far from the arena. Before that, you need to pass something called the probation, an assessment where trainers decide if you're ready for real combat or if you should just go back to washing weapons. No pressure. You lie awake on your straw mat that night, listening to snores and the occasional nervous whimper. The moonlight slants through the bars of your cell window, and you wonder what you were thinking when you volunteered for this. Or were you volunteered? Sometimes people sold themselves into gladiatorhood to escape debt. Others were just unlucky prisoners of war. Historians still debate how voluntary really was. You might never know. Morning comes with a smack from a wooden stick on your door. Up, bellows the lanista. Probatio today. Try not to embarrass yourselves. Out in the training yard, you're handed a real sword. It's lighter than the wooden one, but deadlier by several magnitudes. You glance at your opponent, a lanky kid with nervous eyes. He probably looks a lot like you. You nod to each other. There are no cheers, no crowd, just grunts, sweat, and the clanging of steel as you both do your best not to die. You take a hit to your shoulder. It stings, but your adrenaline cushions the pain. You manage a counter-strike, a light touch to his arm. It's enough. The trainers step in, separating you like unruly dogs. The verdict, not completely useless. Welcome to the roster. You exhale for the first time in hours. Your reward? More porridge and slightly less verbal abuse. And just like that, you're officially a novitius, a rookie gladiator. Your real training is just beginning. Now that you've been deemed not completely useless, things get marginally better. Marginally. You're moved to a slightly larger cell, this one with a better straw mat and a sliver of a view, just enough to see a crumbling wall and a patch of sky that taunts you with freedom. You're also given a proper training schedule, which sounds impressive until you realize it's just a fancier way of saying, we'll break you methodically now. Your body is sore in places you didn't know could ache. The daily regimen involves weapon drills, mock combat, and this delightful little exercise where you run in circles carrying a sandbag shaped like a Roman senator. It's supposed to build core strength, but really, it just builds resentment. The lanista strolls by every now and then with a switch in hand, not to use it, just to remind you he could. You're being trained in the secutor style, one of the more common gladiator classes. That means your armor is deliberately limiting. Helmet with tiny eye holes? Check. Short sword and curved shield? Check. Zero peripheral vision and a tendency to overheat? Absolutely. It's almost like the Romans enjoyed designing their fighters to be vulnerable, just enough to keep the matches spicy. The guy you're often paired with in drills is a retiarius. He fights with a net and a trident, and no helmet. It sounds absurd until that net wraps around your arm and yanks you off balance for the third time in an hour. You fall hard, grumbling, "This is why I hate seafood." He laughs. First time you've heard that from anyone in weeks. You swap stories over gruel later that evening. He's from Gaul, sold to the ludus in court stealing a loaf of bread. His name's officially Varro, but everyone calls him Fishstick. You don't ask why. You're afraid you'll find out the hard way. Training accidents are common. One guy dislocates his shoulder during a mock duel and spends the rest of the week with it bound awkwardly while being forced to clean latrines. Another misjudges a leap and knocks himself out cold against a post. There's no sympathy. You fall, you get up, or you don't, and they replace you. Despite the brutality, camaraderie starts to form. You learn nicknames, share rations, and start to develop a weird kind of loyalty. You're all just meat with a pulse, but you're each other's meat with a pulse. The politics inside the ludus are more complex than you'd expect. The veterans, those who've seen the arena, carry a certain weight. They don't speak much, but when they do, everyone listens. One called Cater the Bleeder has survived 5 matches and still walks with a limp. He watches you during drills like he's sizing you up for a coffin, or a partnership. He corners you one afternoon near the well. You block like a scared donkey, he mutters, but you're fast. That'll keep your heart inside your chest, maybe. Encouraging in its own Roman way. You ask him what it's like, being in the arena for real. He doesn't answer immediately, just stares into the bucket as the water ripples. Finally, you won't hear the crowd. You won't feel the sand. All you'll know is your opponent's eyes, and whether they blink before you strike. You blink first, just hearing that. Later, under the pink-tinged Roman twilight, the lanista gathers everyone in the yard. He's grinning, which is always bad news. Big show coming up, he announces. Governor's birthday. He wants blood and bravery, so we're giving him both. Names are called. Yours is one of them. Your stomach lurches. You're on the list. Not a sparring match, not a drill. A real arena. Real swords. Real death. That night, no one sleeps. Some pray. Some sharpen blades obsessively, even though they won't use them until show day. Fishstick just stares at the ceiling, whispering something in Gaulish you don't understand, but it sounds suspiciously like, I regret everything. Historians still argue whether rookie gladiators were paired in real combat matches or given staged easy fights to survive longer. The answer, you realize, is probably it depends how sadistic the sponsor was. The morning of the match, you're scrubbed clean, shaved and rubbed with oil like a prized cow. They paint your name, your stage name anyway, on a board outside the arena. You get a moment to see it before you're led in. There it is, Felix the Quick. You're not feeling very quick, more like Felix the Terrified. The arena roars to life. It's not the Colosseum, but a smaller provincial amphitheater. Still, thousands of people, clapping, cheering, jeering. A brass band plays a lively tune that feels wildly inappropriate for the occasion. You're pushed forward, a gate rises, and then it's just light. Blinding, hot, golden light. You walk out onto the sand, blinking, adjusting. Across from you, another figure emerges. You can't see their face, but you can feel the tension crackling like dry grass between you. Your sword feels heavier now, your armor tighter. The crowd goes silent, and then the horn sounds. You don't even realize you've started moving until the sand kicks up under your sandals. There's no strategy, no game plan. Just your body acting before your brain has a chance to throw up objections. You raise your shield instinctively, duck your head low and charge. Your opponent moves with the same twitchy panic. You both collide, blades scraping, shields slamming, like 2 terrified deer trying to bluff their way out of a lion's den. It's not elegant. It's not heroic, it's just noise and metal and breath. You manage to land a glancing blow on their side, not deep, but enough to make them stumble. The crowd cheers or gasps. It all blurs together. You feel like a puppet with the strings yanked too hard. Your sword arm is already trembling. Then your opponent recovers faster than you expected. They sweep low, catching your shin with the flat of their blade. You yelp, more from surprise than pain, and stagger backward. Your balance teeters. One wrong step and you're in the dirt. You regain your footing just in time. The lanista's voice echoes in your mind. Always stay on your feet. Dead men fall. Survivors pivot. You pivot. Dodge left. Raise your shield just in time to block a downward strike. It jars your whole body. You swear your teeth rattle. Now it's a rhythm. Strike, block, dodge. You're not thinking anymore. You're reacting. Somewhere in this fever dream, a part of you starts to enjoy it. The sheer absurdity. The adrenaline high. The realization that you might, against all odds, not die in the first 5 minutes. Historians often debate how choreographed these fights really were. Some argue that rookies like you were expected to entertain without killing each other, at least not right away. Others suggest the opposite. Throw them in raw, let nature and bloodlust sort it out. Your match seems to be leaning toward the please don't die too soon side. The strikes are forceful but not murderous. The crowd wants to watch, not end it prematurely. You and your opponent begin to understand this unspoken rule. The way dolphins sometimes learn synchronized tricks in captivity. You slash wide, your opponent parries, a dance of sorts. But then it changes. Your opponent suddenly drops their guard, falling to one knee. Whether it's exhaustion or a clever trick, you're not sure. Instinct tells you to press forward, but another voice, one you didn't know you had, says wait. It's a trap. You hesitate, and that hesitation might just save your life. Because your opponent lunges with a hidden dagger, a weapon they weren't supposed to have. The blade misses your gut by inches. You retaliate, slamming your shield forward so hard it knocks them flat. The arena explodes in noise. Guards rush in. There's shouting. A man in a toga, probably the sponsor, stands and points angrily. The match is over. Disqualified for treachery, not you, thankfully. You're yanked back through the gate, dazed and sweating. A slave pours water over your head and someone presses a strip of linen into your hand. You only realize later that it's meant to clean the blood off your sword, not your blood, thankfully. You survived. You didn't win, technically, but you didn't die, and in this world that's as good as a victory parade. That night, you sit beside the fire pit with Fishstick and Cato the Bleeder. No one says much, just the crackle of wood and the occasional grunt as someone adjusts their bruised ribs. Fishstick finally breaks the silence. Next time, don't hesitate. You glance at him, but it saved me. He shrugs. Maybe once, maybe never again. Cato chimes in. You learned something today. They cheat. They always cheat. You nod, feeling older. Not wiser, necessarily. Just worn. In the days that follow, something shifts. The other gladiators nod at you now. A subtle gesture, but it means something. You're one of them. Not just a prisoner. A participant. You're allowed to visit the armamentarium, the Ludus's weapon store. Rows of swords, tridents, helmets, and shields line the racks. Everything smells like oil and sweat. The quartermaster, a grumpy ex-legionnaire with one ear, lets you test a few blades. Choose the one that feels like it wants to kill for you, he says with a grin that's far too wide for comfort. You settle on a short gladius with a slightly curved tip. Balanced, clean, deadly, but cooperative. You name it mercy, because irony keeps you sane. One morning, a messenger arrives with a scroll. The seal bears the insignia of the editor, the game's overseer. The note is brief but clear. Felix the Quick, invited to next month's games at the Amphitheatrum Castrense. High-profile guests in attendance. Performance mandatory. Fishstick reads over your shoulder and sighs. Better start praying to whatever gods you haven't offended yet. A few of the older gladiators smirk. Castrense? That's a real arena, one mutters. No net fights. No second chances. You feel the weight of it settle into your bones. That night, lying on your straw mat, you imagine the crowd, the banners, the Emperor's envoy watching from the royal box. You imagine yourself out there, the sand hot beneath your feet, mercy in your hand. And you wonder, what would happen if you lost? Not just the fight, but the fear. That means he's very good. The White Wolf. You've heard the name before, in whispers. A Thracian, they say, with skin like milk and a scar from his lip to his ear that makes it look like he's always half smiling. Some say he used to be a soldier. Others claim he was a bandit lord, captured and spared only because someone saw how efficiently he killed. Either way, he's earned the title. Not just for his pale features, but for the way he fights. Calculated, cold, and fast. Like a predator testing the edges of a herd. As Tertius drones on about the running order and crowd expectations, you drift into your own thoughts. You picture Arden's face, his stance, the shape of his blade. You imagine the sound of steel meeting steel, the weight of your life pressing against his in the center of the arena. When the editor finishes, you're dismissed with a wave. The others shuffle back to their cells, murmuring or praying. You return to yours in silence. Mercy waits where you left her. You run your thumb along her hilt and whisper one more time. That night, sleep comes in shards. You dream of wolves, not white but black, endless, circling in snow you can't feel. Their eyes glow, they don't snarl, they wait. Morning. A horn sounds somewhere above and the corridors stir. A guard bangs on the bars with the butt of his spear. Up. Showtime. You dress in silence. Straps, sandals, leather guards. You tie Mercy to your belt and walk with the others into the staging tunnel. Light slashes the sand beyond the gate. Hot and gold. The crowd chants above. You can't tell if it's your name or someone else's. It doesn't matter. The gate begins to rise with the sound of iron groaning against stone. This is it. Sand, sun, the roar of Rome, and across the arena, a tall, pale man with a scar across his grin, watching you like he's already figured out how you'll die. You step forward, Mercy in hand, and for the first time you feel nothing but clarity. Fear is a luxury, doubt is a distraction. Today you are not a prisoner, not a pawn. You are a blade, and blades were made to cut. Fishstick raises an eyebrow. Arden? Still alive, huh? Guess nobody told him it's okay to retire. You want to laugh, but your stomach doesn't cooperate. Later, as you lace your sandals and strap on your arm guard, you hear him. Arden. His voice echoes down the corridor. Calm, gravelly, joking with the guards like this is a tavern instead of a death pit. You catch a glimpse of him through the bars. Tall, silver-haired, body crisscrossed with scars. He's older than you expected, but his eyes are razor-sharp. As you walk toward the holding gate, you pass a wall etched with names, hundreds of them, some carved neatly, others scratched with broken nails. Historians debate whether these names were recorded tributes or desperate prayers. You touch one, just briefly, and keep walking. The crowd above is a living roar now. You can feel it in your chest, like thunder with no lightning. Dust trickles from the stone ceiling. Somewhere, a lion growls. You step into the corridor leading to the arena floor. Light floods in, your pupils shrink to pinpricks. Every instinct tells you to run the other way. But you don't, because this is who you are now. You enter. The sand feels oddly soft beneath your feet, like stepping onto flour. The air is dry, tinged with sweat and crushed flowers, the perfumed garlands tossed by aristocrats who want the blood to smell nice. You scan the crowd. Faces blur. But high above, in a marble box, someone important reclines on a couch, sipping wine. Probably a senator, maybe someone who voted for this exact event. And then there he is, Arden, already waiting. He smiles, a crooked, surprisingly warm smile. You're the one with the eyes, he says casually. New boys always have big eyes. You manage a nod. Just keep them open, he adds. You might learn something before I beat the snot out of you. The horn blares. No time to reply. He moves first, fast. For someone his age, he's a blur of motion. You block his opening strike, but barely. The impact rattles your arm. Your feet skid in the sand. He circles. You follow. You test his defenses with a few light jabs. He deflects them like he's swatting flies. Too polite, he grins. You want to live? Hit like you mean it. So you do. A harder swing this time. He parries, but his stance shifts slightly. You press in. He counters with a knee to your side. It knocks the breath out of you. You double over, gasping. He doesn't finish you. Yet. Breathe, he advises, stepping back. And don't hunch. You'll invite decapitation. The crowd is eating this up. A young fool versus an aging wolf. You sense the drama building. You can almost hear a commentator whispering, will the rookie defy death or become lunch? Historians still argue whether matches like this were truly fair or secretly rigged. Some say the editors whispered outcomes into the fighters' ears beforehand. Others insist every fight was genuine chaos. You suspect the truth is somewhere in the middle. You adjust your grip on Mercy. Wait, Arden tilts his head, curious, then lunges. This time you're ready. You deflect, then pivot behind him, grazing his shoulder with your blade. The crowd gasps. A point for you. He touches the scratch and chuckles. Not bad. Then he gets serious. The next exchange is brutal. Metal against metal. Shield bashing shield. He feints high, then goes low. You leap backward just in time. Your arm is shaking again. Your legs feel like wet cloth, but you're still standing. You're still learning. Your breath ragged, you stand in the arena's glaring sun, sand clinging to your sweating skin. The roar of the crowd feels like a tidal wave crashing over you, yet your focus narrows. Every instinct screams for survival, but you're only beginning to understand the unspoken rules of this deadly dance. Arden wipes a smear of blood from his lip and nods with respect. Not bad for a first round, he mutters, voice low enough only you can hear. You're not just a snack. A joke, but there's a hint of something else. Grudging admiration? You're not sure. You notice how he moves differently now, less about brute force, more about calculated patience. The first few rounds, he says, are as much about endurance as skill. It's a game of attrition. Many die not in the fight, but from exhaustion or poor decisions afterward. This is a truth many don't see. Gladiators weren't just muscle-bound fighters. They were marathoners, strategists, and sometimes, surprisingly, philosophers. Well, at least some tried to be. You wonder whether your own mind can hold up under this pressure. A fresh breeze carries the sharp scent of crushed herbs, used to mask the stench of blood, you've heard. But the crowd's hunger for gore means that scent never fully works. Some spectators shout encouragement, others mock your every move. You realize the crowd is part of the arena, a beast itself, unpredictable and hungry. Between bouts, your body aches, muscles trembling from adrenaline and pain. You sneak glances at the other fighters waiting in the wings. Some grim-faced veterans polishing their weapons, others pale and shaky rookies. A few whisper prayers to gods you barely believe in. Others stare blankly into the distance, resigned to their fate. You remember reading that Roman gladiators often had surprisingly high social status despite their brutal lives, especially if they won. Some even earned wealth or freedom. But historians still argue whether this was common or just propaganda to keep the masses entertained. The next fight is announced. Your heart drops. You'll face Marcus the Hammer, known for his brutal, unrelenting attacks. Arden's voice cuts through your thoughts. Watch the hammer, he hits like a falling roof. Don't get pinned. You prepare mentally, adjusting your grip on Mercy, your makeshift blade. The arena floor feels less like a battlefield now, more like a cruel classroom. Each fight a lesson you hope to survive. As Marcus approaches, his armor gleaming in the sun, you catch a glimpse of something unusual, a small medallion tied to his wrist, carved with symbols you don't recognize. A relic, maybe? You file it away in your mind for later, a strange comfort amid chaos. The clash begins with a thunderous crash. Marcus swings with all his might, a powerful overhead strike aimed to crush your shield. You barely block, your arms burning with the effort. You remember reading that Roman gladiators often had surprisingly high social status despite their brutal lives, especially if they won. Some even earned wealth or freedom. But historians still argue whether this was common or just propaganda to keep the masses entertained. The next fight is announced. Your heart drops. You'll face Marcus the Hammer, known for his brutal, unrelenting attacks. Arden's voice cuts through your thoughts. Watch the hammer, he hits like a falling roof. Don't get pinned. You prepare mentally, adjusting your grip on Mercy, your makeshift blade. The arena floor feels less like a battlefield now, more like a cruel classroom. Each fight a lesson you hope to survive. As Marcus approaches, his armor gleaming in the sun, you catch a glimpse of something unusual. A small medallion tied to his wrist, carved with symbols you don't recognize. A relic, maybe? You file it away in your mind for later, a strange comfort amid chaos. The clash begins with a thunderous crash. Marcus swings with all his might, a powerful overhead strike aimed to crush your shield. You barely block, your arms burning with the effort. You try to counterattack, but Marcus is relentless. He presses hard, driving you back inch by agonizing inch. You feel the heat of the crowd, sensing their delight in this spectacle of raw violence. Suddenly, you spot an opening, Marcus's left side momentarily unguarded. You strike. The blade grazes his armor, drawing a line of blood. A cheer erupts, but Marcus grins, wiping blood from his chin. Not bad, he says breathlessly, but it'll take more than that to break me. The fight stretches on, a brutal ballet of strength and willpower. You feel your energy waning, but refuse to show weakness. You remember Arden's words. Endurance matters. Sweat stings your eyes. The sand beneath your feet is slippery with blood and dust. You taste iron in your mouth and the bitter tang of fear. Still, you keep moving, keep fighting. When the horn finally blows, signaling the end of the round, both of you stand panting, battered but alive. Marcus nods respectfully. You might just last a day after all. You smile weakly. Maybe. But you know the day is far from over. Back in the shadows of the holding area, your thoughts swirl. You wonder about the countless others who fought before you, some forgotten, some immortalized in dusty scrolls. You wonder about the gladiators who refused to die quietly, who challenged fate and empire alike. You touch the worn leather strap of Mercy again, feeling the weight of survival in your grip. And you wait. Because in this arena, every breath is a battle, every heartbeat a victory. The sun is slowly sinking now, casting long shadows across the arena's rough floor. You stumble back into the dim corridors beneath the stands, muscles screaming for rest, but rest is a luxury the arena rarely allows. Tonight, you will witness something far more harrowing than the fight itself, the rituals of the aftermath. Your feet shuffle over the stone floor, echoing softly against the walls. You see the medics, their faces grim, moving from one injured gladiator to the next. They're armed not with weapons, but with herbs, bandages, and strange concoctions designed to staunch bleeding and ease pain. The scent of myrrh mingles with sweat and blood, an odd perfume for such a brutal place. You recall that Roman medical knowledge was surprisingly advanced for the time, at least when it came to treating wounds sustained in the arena. But historians still argue whether the care gladiators received was motivated by genuine concern or cold economics. After all, a well-heeled gladiator meant more fights, more blood, more entertainment, and ultimately more money for the organizers. You find Arden seated on a wooden bench, his face pale but calm. "You did well," he says, passing you a cup of water. You take it gratefully, savoring the coolness as it slips down your parched throat. "Thanks," you say, but your voice is hoarse. "How do you keep going?" Ardan chuckles, a dry, rattling sound. You don't think about it. You don't think about the future, the pain, or the possibility of dying. You just put one foot in front of the other. That's the secret. Nearby, a group of gladiators are gathered around a table where a man carves wooden figurines, tiny representations of famous fighters and mythological beasts. It seems like a strange pastime, but you learn it's a tradition. These carvings are tokens of luck and remembrance, small anchors in the sea of violence. The sun is slowly sinking now, casting long shadows across the arena's rough floor. You stumble back into the dim corridors beneath the stands, muscles screaming for rest, but rest is a luxury the arena rarely allows. Tonight, you will witness something far more harrowing than the fight itself, the rituals of the aftermath. Your feet shuffle over the stone floor, echoing softly against the walls. You see the medics, their faces grim, moving from one injured gladiator to the next. They're armed not with weapons, but with herbs, bandages, and strange concoctions designed to staunch bleeding and ease pain. The scent of myrrh mingles with sweat and blood, an odd perfume for such a brutal place. You recall that Roman medical knowledge was surprisingly advanced for the time, at least when it came to treating wounds sustained in the arena. But historians still argue whether the care gladiators received was motivated by genuine concern or cold economics. After all, a well-heeled gladiator meant more fights, more blood, more entertainment, and ultimately more money for the organizers. You find Arden seated on a wooden bench, his face pale but calm. "You did well," he says, passing you a cup of water. You take it gratefully, savoring the coolness as it slips down your parched throat. "Thanks," you say, but your voice is hoarse. "How do you keep going?" Ardan chuckles, a dry, rattling sound. You don't think about it. You don't think about the future, the pain, or the possibility of dying. You just put one foot in front of the other. That's the secret. Nearby, a group of gladiators are gathered around a table where a man carves wooden figurines, tiny representations of famous fighters and mythological beasts. It seems like a strange pastime, but you learn it's a tradition. These carvings are tokens of luck and remembrance, small anchors in the sea of violence. You wake to the faint glow of dawn slipping through the narrow window slats. The air smells damp and faintly of sweat and old stone. Your muscles protest as you push yourself up, every ache a reminder that surviving yesterday's battle was only the beginning. Outside, the arena is already stirring with activity. The murmurs of the crowd, the clinking of armor, the distant whinnying of horses, all merge into the morning symphony of a day about to unfold in blood and spectacle. You trudge towards the training grounds, where the sound of wooden swords thudding against shields greets you like an unwelcome alarm clock. The lanista, the stern and watchful trainer, strides between his charges, barking orders. You know that his approval means the difference between fighting today or being benched, or worse, discarded. Training here is brutal in its own quiet way. It's not just about strength, but survival skills. timing, footwork, and reading an opponent's subtle tells. Your arms ache as you spar with a younger gladiator who moves with surprising agility. You remember that some gladiators were prized not just for brute force but for showmanship, performing intricate routines that captivated the crowds. It's odd to think that the public adored these fighters, who were both celebrities and slaves. The paradox isn't lost on you. Historians still argue whether the admiration was genuine respect or merely a reflection of the Romans' thirst for spectacle. During a rare break, you watch as a few gladiators gather around a small fire, sharing simple meals of barley bread, olives, and dried fish. Food here is utilitarian, nothing like the feasts enjoyed by the empire's elite. You chew thoughtfully, recalling that gladiators were often called barley men because of their grain-heavy diet, believed to help build stamina and repair muscles. One of your comrades pulls out a small piece of parchment and reads aloud a poem about Hercules, the mythical hero whose strength and courage were legendary. The story stirs something deep inside you, even as you wonder if it's just an ancient myth crafted to make your brutal reality seem a little more bearable. A shadow crosses your path. It's the medic from yesterday, carrying fresh bandages and a pot of pungent ointment. You gratefully accept the salve for the scrape on your shoulder, the bitter smell making your eyes water. You ask him if the ointment really works. He shrugs. It helps, or at least it doesn't hurt. That's probably the best answer you'll get here. As the sun climbs higher, the distant sound of trumpets signals the start of the day's main event. Your heart pounds, not just from nerves but from the weight of knowing what awaits. You tighten your grip on your gladius and steel yourself. The crowd will soon call your name. You will step into the sunlight and face your fate. For now, the arena waits. During a rare break, you watch as a few gladiators gather around a small fire, sharing simple meals of barley bread, olives, and dried fish. Food here is utilitarian, nothing like the feasts enjoyed by the empire's elite. You chew thoughtfully, recalling that gladiators were often called barley men because of their grain-heavy diet, believed to help build stamina and repair muscles. One of your comrades pulls out a small piece of parchment and reads aloud a poem about Hercules, the mythical hero whose strength and courage were legendary. The story stirs something deep inside you, even as you wonder if it's just an ancient myth crafted to make your brutal reality seem a little more bearable. A shadow crosses your path. It's the medic from yesterday, carrying fresh bandages and a pot of pungent ointment. You gratefully accept the salve for the scrape on your shoulder, the bitter smell making your eyes water. You ask him if the ointment really works. He shrugs. It helps, or at least it doesn't hurt. That's probably the best answer you'll get here. As the sun climbs higher, the distant sound of trumpets signals the start of the day's main event. Your heart pounds, not just from nerves but from the weight of knowing what awaits. You tighten your grip on your gladius and steel yourself. The crowd will soon call your name. You will step into the sunlight and face your fate. For now, the arena waits. After the adrenaline fades, you're led to the rudimentary bathhouse just beyond the arena. The heat of the water soothes your aching muscles, but it's a small comfort compared to the grinding reality of your daily life. The baths were not the leisurely spas of today. They were functional, communal, and sometimes quite chilly, depending on the season. You recall that gladiators were surprisingly well fed, often more so than common citizens. Their diet, rich in barley, beans, and dried fruits, earned them the nickname hordearii, or barley men. This carb-heavy fare was designed to build a layer of fat. Think of it as primitive padding to protect against blows. It's funny to imagine that the very food meant to keep you alive might also make you look a bit plump for a fighter. Despite this, your life is a constant battle with injury and infection. There were no antibiotics to patch you up. Instead, you rely on herbal remedies and the careful attention of the Lanister's medic. They apply poultices made from honey, vinegar, and even donkey dung, a detail that tends to inspire equal parts disgust and fascination in modern historians. Between bouts, you train relentlessly. The Lanister oversees your regimen with a mix of stern discipline and occasional indulgence. You learn to fight with various weapons: the gladius sword, the trident and net, the dagger, and even the heavier scutum shield. Each style demands different skills and strategies, keeping your mind as sharp as your blade. You think about the camaraderie among gladiators, bonds forged through shared hardship and peril. Unlike the lonely image the crowd might have, you find moments of humor and brotherhood in your daily grind. One particularly cheeky companion once sneaked in a small wooden flute, playing off-key tunes to lighten the mood during training. There's still debate among scholars whether the Lannisters' harsh discipline was primarily cruelty or a brutal form of mentorship aimed at survival. Either way, the system kept you hungry for every ounce of skill you could muster. You run a hand over the fresh scar on your forearm, a souvenir from yesterday's fight. It aches, but reminds you that you're still here, still fighting another day. You wake before dawn to the grueling routine of preparation. The arena's dust has barely settled from yesterday's spectacle, yet your body already aches in anticipation of the next challenge. The morning air is crisp, carrying faint smells of smoke and sweat that seem to cling permanently to this place. Your first task is armoring up, strapping on the heavy manica arm guards, the crested helmet that weighs like a brick, and the thick leather greaves protecting your shins. Every piece has its place and purpose, designed to shield without sacrificing agility. There's a quiet ritual in these motions, a familiar dance that steadies your nerves. As you strap on your gladius, you reflect on the weapons that have defined gladiatorial combat. The Retiarius fights with a net and trident, relying on speed and cunning, while the Secutor boasts heavier armor and a sword, resembling a predator chasing prey. Each match pits contrasting styles against each other, a carefully choreographed spectacle disguised as deadly combat. Today you're slated against a Murmillo, a fighter clad in fish-scale-like armor and a plumed helmet. The crowd murmurs with eager anticipation, their voices a mix of excitement and expectation. Historians still argue whether gladiators truly fought to the death every time, or if the outcomes were sometimes predetermined to please the crowd. Your Lannister gives a curt nod. No pep talk, just business. You step into the bright morning light, the roar of thousands greeting you like a tide. The sun blinds for a moment, and your heart hammers in your chest, the fight-or-flight instinct honed by months of training surging forward. You feel the rough texture of the sand beneath your sandals as you enter the arena's center. Every eye is on you, the slave, the warrior, the entertainer. You are both feared and admired, trapped in a paradox of glory and brutal survival. The first clash is thunderous, the ring of metal, the grunt of exertion, the crowd's cheers rising and falling like waves. You duck and parry, remembering the drills and the countless hours of sweat spent honing your reflexes. One wrong move here isn't just a mistake, it's a sentence. Through the dust and noise, you notice a glint of the sun off your opponent's helmet, a flash of a smile from a fellow gladiator who once shared your bunk. Moments like these, fleeting, human, remind you that beneath the armor and spectacle, you are just a man trying to outlast the day. The roar of the crowd fades into a dull hum as you catch your breath in the shadowed recesses of the gladiator barracks. Your muscles throb, a deep ache that speaks of both triumph and exhaustion. You wipe the sweat and blood from your face. The mingling tastes a grim reminder that this world offers no room for weakness. Between bouts, your life is one of rigid routine and scarce pleasures. You eat simple meals, barley porridge, dried fruits, and occasionally salted fish, designed to keep you strong but never satisfied. Food here isn't a comfort, it's fuel, rationed to maintain fighting weight without excess. Your quarters are sparse, shared with other fighters who exchange stories of their origins. Some slaves, some criminals, a rare few volunteers seeking fame or fortune. They speak in hushed tones about past matches, legendary gladiators, and the fleeting mercy of the editor, the official who decides life or death with a subtle gesture. It's strange how camaraderie and competition intertwine. You bond over shared scars and whispered fears, yet you know that tomorrow's opponent might be your closest friend today. The emotional tightrope you walk is just as perilous as the one in the arena. Between training drills and matches, your mind wanders to the outside world. Rome's bustling streets, the senators in their marble villas, the common folk who cheer your name without truly knowing you. Historians still argue whether gladiators were reviled as lowly slaves or celebrated as celebrities of their time. Despite the hardships, there are moments of quiet solace. The sound of a lute playing softly in the distance, a brief exchange of a kind word from a guard, or the comforting rhythm of your own breathing as you settle down for restless sleep. Tonight, as you lie on a hard cot, the distant cheers echo in your mind. You wonder how many days like this remain before your name fades into the dust, swallowed by the sands of the arena. The next morning dawns with faint light filtering through barred windows, casting long, thin shadows across the cold stone floors of the Gladiator barracks. You awaken to the sounds of footsteps, grunts, and the clang of metal, a familiar orchestra signaling the start of another relentless day. Your first task is a brutal training session with the lanista, the overseer who manages your regiment. His eyes are sharp, his voice gruff, pushing you past exhaustion with relentless drills of swordsmanship, shield defense, and footwork. Each movement is practiced to near perfection because in the arena, hesitation means death. A lesser-known fact is that some gladiators specialized in styles that mimicked foreign enemies. Rome had fought, creating a theatrical battle that was part sport, part propaganda. You might be a Mumio one day, wielding a heavy shield and short sword, and a retiarius the next, fighting with a trident and net. Historians still debate how much of these performances were genuine combat versus choreographed showmanship. After training, you return to the mess hall for a meal, often taken in silence or quiet murmurs. The diet is surprisingly well planned. Barley for energy, beans for protein, and a special concoction known as gladiator's ash, a powder made from charred bones believed to aid in healing and strength. It's odd to think that your strength partly comes from eating what sounds like crushed skeletons. Between meals and training, you might receive visits from the Lanista's associates, who negotiate bets or organize your next match. Money changes hands, sometimes more valuable than your own life, and you get the faintest hint that you are both prize and pawn. In moments of rare quiet, you reflect on your fate. Many gladiators never see freedom, but a few earn it through exceptional skill or favor. Freedom, however, is a complex idea. It means stepping into a world that might not welcome you as a hero, but rather as a curiosity or a pariah. As you prepare your gear for the next fight, the tension coils inside you like a spring. Your mind sharpens, knowing that each swing, each dodge might be your last. The crowds will roar, but you know the silence that follows could be eternal. You stand now on the brink of the arena, heart pounding against your ribs like a wild drum. The roar of the crowd washes over you, a tidal wave of sound that both terrifies and fuels your fighting spirit. The sunlight beats down mercilessly, glinting off the polished armor of your opponent and the fine dust swirling beneath your sandals. You smell sweat, dust, and the faint metallic tang of blood already spilled on the sand. This is your stage, the place where your skill, endurance, and luck are tested to their utmost limits. Gladiatorial combat is not just about brute strength. It's a carefully balanced dance of tactics and showmanship. You remember that some gladiators fought with mismatched weapons to make the fight more entertaining, a heavily armored secutor versus a nimble retiarius, throwing nets and striking with tridents. This theatricality was as much about pleasing the crowd as it was about survival. Scholars still argue whether some matches were staged or fixed, with victors predetermined to maintain public interest. Yet, the danger was always real enough to keep you alert. Behind the scenes, the medical attendants, the medisa, watch keenly, ready to rush in with their herbal poultices and bandages should you fall wounded. Their knowledge of anatomy and treatment was surprisingly advanced for the time, and some gladiators even became celebrities partly because of their remarkable recoveries from grievous injuries. This blend of violence and care creates a paradoxical environment, almost like a strange, brutal ritual. As the trumpet sounds, you charge forward, shield raised, muscles taut, and senses alive. Your mind flashes back to the earlier training, the meals of barley and beans that sustain you, the countless hours of preparation. Every muscle remembers the drills, every breath counts. And yet beneath it all is a quiet, simmering hope, a wish that today's fight somehow be the last, leading to freedom, or at least a moment of peace. The final moments in the arena blur together, your limbs moving on instinct more than thought as the sun dips lower, casting long shadows over the sand. Every strike, Every parry is a conversation in violence between you and your opponent, but also a dance with fate. The crowd's cheers rise and fall like waves, their voices urging you onward, even as exhaustion weighs heavily on your body. You feel the burn in your arms and legs, the sting of sweat in your eyes, and the rough grain of sand beneath your fingers as you grip your weapon tighter. Victory in the arena doesn't always mean survival, but it often means another day of training, another chance at freedom or glory. Some gladiators earned their freedom through repeated victories or the favor of a wealthy patron. Others found their fame immortalized in mosaic art or popular stories whispered through the streets of Rome. Yet, historians still argue how often these fabled lucky escapes truly happened versus being a rare exception in an otherwise harsh existence. You recall the peculiar rituals that surrounded gladiatorial combat, the thumb signals deciding life or death, the carefully orchestrated spectacles timed with political events, and the strange camaraderie that sometimes blossomed between fighters despite the deadly stakes. The lanista, your trainer and manager, was both a disciplinarian and a shrewd businessman, investing in your skills like a stockbroker watching the market. His interest in your survival was always measured against the cost of your upkeep and the excitement you generated for the crowd. As the fight draws to a close, you can almost hear the quiet moments after the crowd disperses, the cleaning of armor, the mending of wounds, the whispered prayers for protection. Gladiators were more than mere entertainers. They were complex figures woven into the fabric of Roman culture, embodying both its brutality and its fascination with heroism and spectacle. Your breath steadies as you step back, muscles trembling but spirit unbroken. Whether you walk away victorious or fall beneath the sand, you've become part of a story that echoes through the ages, a story both harsh and strangely compelling. The sun has nearly vanished beyond the horizon, and the arena slowly empties, leaving behind a quiet stillness that feels almost surreal after the day's chaos. You trudge off the sandy battleground, your body aching but your mind drifting into a gentle haze. The scent of sweat, dust, and faint blood mingles in the air, a reminder of the day's relentless trials. As the cool evening breeze brushes your skin, your thoughts begin to slow, settling into a rhythm as soothing as the lullabies whispered by the Roman night. You imagine the simple comforts waiting for you, a sparse meal of bread and olives, the murmur of distant conversations among fellow gladiators, and the gentle crackling of torches illuminating the stone corridors. It's a humble life. Certainly not one filled with luxury or ease, but it is yours. Tonight you let the tension loosen its grip, the adrenaline fade like a receding tide. Historians still argue whether gladiators truly found moments of peace between fights, or if the shadow of danger loomed constantly. But for now, you allow yourself this fragile calm. The roar of the crowd fades to a distant memory, replaced by the soft rustle of night creatures and the occasional clink of armor being set aside. You feel the cool weight of sleep settling in, a welcome respite from the constant struggle for survival. Your thoughts drift back to the quirks of your life, the lanista's gruff encouragement, the curious superstitions about lucky charms and sacred rituals, and even the surprising friendships formed in the unlikeliest of places. As your eyelids grow heavy, you sense that tomorrow will bring another day of training, another test of endurance and skill. But for now, you rest, wrapped in the quiet embrace of history's long shadow. The story of the Roman gladiator is not just one of combat and spectacle. It's a tale of resilience, humanity, and the strange, persistent hope that keeps you fighting, day after day. Sleep well, knowing that you've walked in the footsteps of those who lived, fought, and dreamed beneath the great Roman sun.